Welcome back to Tea Coffee Fantasy Football. I'm Matthew.
I'm Jacob.
Today we're going to do part one of our running back rankings for PPR redraft leagues.
Yeah, so let's just get started. I'm sure I know who your number one running back is. Mine's Christian McCaffrey. Who's yours?
Yep, McCaffrey. I think it's a no-brainer. He was injured last year, but they weren't long-term injuries. In the games he played, he averaged 30 points per game or something. So he's basically a no-brainer pick at this point.
Yeah, in my notes, I just put duh. I don't know what argument you can make. His situations really hasn't changed. What they're running with the same scheme, almost the same players. Uh, only thing you're gambling on is injuries, which that might be the risk of just having the number one overall pick in general, because if you pick number one and say Christian McCaffrey gets hurt, you might be a little bit screwed, but that's kind of the only negative, is just injuries, which could happen to anyone.
Yeah, you should take Christian McCaffrey with the one pick. No question about
Yeah,
that. Running
don't
back
get cute.
is where it may get different. Who do you have?
I actually have Alvin Kamara.
Okay. I have Delvin Cook.
I feel like probably 70% of the fantasy community probably has Dalvin Cook. And I have
Yeah.
Dalvin Cook as my RB3, and I don't really have any questions about Dalvin Cook. I just actually honestly feel better about Alvin Kamara's health than Dalvin Cook. And I think he's going to be touching the ball less. He's not getting the carries that Dalvin Cook is, because they like to use Latavius Murray much more as a um, relief pitcher backup, but he's still going to get more passing volume. And in PPR, that's more valuable. Like in half PPR and in just standard non PPR leagues, I would probably take Dalvin. But Alvin Kamara, I projected to have more targets. He's going to touch the ball less. And with Dalvin, I think I'll just talk about it now. He seems to miss a decent amount of time. And he's not going to miss, he doesn't miss huge chunks of the season, but like game here, game there, he's kind of banged up. And I've had him on my team for the past, in a bunch of leagues for the past couple of years. So yeah, he just seems like he's always banged up, and it seems to be hamstring injuries a lot of the time, which if you're born with short hamstrings, those tend to not really go away,
Yeah.
because it's so much harder to keep them stretched and conditioned. And not I'm saying Dalvin Cook's going to miss a season or anything, but just expect him to be a little banged up, whereas I don't really have those concerns with Kamara.
Yeah, I feel like Kamara and Cook, they're my 2 and 3. You can switch them anyway. I just feel like Cook is just his situation is a little bit more defined than Kamara's. Like Kamara, Taysom Hill worries me a little bit. I don't know who's going to start there, but we saw in the games with Hill last year, Kamara didn't do the best in terms of receptions. So that's something that kind of worries me. And I agree that Cook has injury issues, but I don't know, just they're gonna happen. I don't really feel that it's gonna be something really big that's gonna impact him.
Yeah, no, no,
Something I
no
do
way.
like about Kamara is that Michael Thomas got hurt for a few weeks, and in the games where Michael Thomas was hurt, Kamara has had absurd amount of targets. Like he's had 8 targets, 10 targets, 6 targets, 12 targets. So in a PPR league, that's gonna be really insane.
Yeah, and the thing, I could see the argument for drafting Cook second if you know you're going to take Alexander Madison later to make up for the time that Dalvin Cook has missed. So, if you do that, I honestly, I would consider doing that sometimes. But also with who's going to start in New Orleans, to me, it just has to be Jameis Winston. He's such a better quarterback than Taysom Hill. I'm not saying Jameis is good. He's rightfully the butt of every joke, but I don't know what to say. He's a better quarterback than Taysom Hill. He's got a better arm. He's much more accurate, better pocket presence. And I know this sounds weird, but he's better at reading defenses and knowing what he's looking at. It's just the brain fart mistakes that caused him to throw, 20 picks a year. But Jameis is just, I can't believe that Taysom Hill would actually start. Sean Payton's holding a true quarterback competition. I'd imagine they started Taysom Hill last year just because they kind of wanted to sit Jameis for a full year to make him get really comfortable. And they figured, well, Drew Brees maybe won't be missing that much time anyway. So, and we kind of want to be careful with Jameis, not rushing back into things. So we'll just start Taysom Hill. That's just my 2 cents. Jameis is just is just way better in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree that Winston should start, but like the past 3 days in training camp, Hill started day 1 and 2, and then Winston started today. So it feels that Sean Payton kind of likes Taysom Hill, which is, I don't know, something just to keep an eye on.
I mean, that's true. It's no secret, but like that Sean Payton really likes Taysom Hill. But to me, like I heard they were holding like a true quarterback competition. They're not outright saying Taysom's starter, James starter.
Yeah.
I think James will start a couple days. Taysom will start a couple days. I can't imagine like Sean Payton should hopefully not start Taysom Hill unless he's tanking for a quarterback. But yeah, anyway, moving on to
Running back
RB4.
four. I think the top four, it's pretty set in stone. My running back four is Derrick Henry.
I actually have, and keep in
Okay.
mind, I haven't adjusted this because of injury concerns. I have Saquon Barkley as my RB4 if he is healthy, which I'm starting to get really worried about. He was placed on the PUP list, and I've seen some videos of him doing drills and limping, like really limping. I'm getting seriously concerned about Saquon Barkley's health. So if he misses time, look for their backups are really not much to write home about. They have what Devontae Booker and Corey Clement. I'd keep an eye on them because they're going to get a ton of work. But Saquon Barkley would be my RB4 if he's healthy.
Yeah.
But I'm really starting to get worried.
Yeah, I had for a while Saquon as a running back four, but his injury concerns really are concerning me, not just because he might not even be ready by week 1, but just because the Giants have said they're going to ease him back in. So like he's not going to be getting 100% carries right away. It's going to take maybe until week 5 or something. So I think I would rather have someone like Henry who's going to get 100% of the carries right away than someone like Barkley who's going to be eased in the first few weeks of the season.
I agree with you. I would certainly take Henry above Saquon right now. And this is kind of tangent. The running back who does literally everything and stays in for 100% of the snaps, there's really not that guy anymore in the NFL. There can't be. I mean, even Derrick Henry, who's going to get 400 carries this year, he just doesn't catch the ball. He doesn't come in for receiving downs. It's partly why, less wear and tear, less snaps are on the field. He's brought in to carry the ball. He's not a good receiving back. They have some random guys that can fill in for that if they want to throw a screen pass or something. But running back that stays in does literally everything. They just wear down way too quickly. And I think
McCaffrey's in. Like looking at his 2019 season, he played every snap of the game. How many times? 1, 2, 3, 7 times. He played every single snap.
That's true. And I'd hope that those injury concerns from last year don't follow CMC forward into this year, especially for people.
And then in the games he played 97 snaps, 65 and 70, which is insane.
Yeah. Also, though, like Saquon, I'm just starting to start worried about him breaking down in general. I'm honestly remarkably surprised CMC's been able to stay pretty healthy with the amount of snaps he's played.
The thing with CMC's injuries are that they're not like long-term effects injuries. They're just, you get healed and they're done. Like they're not going to something that like, you're hurt it, now you get increased risk of hurting again. And I think it's done for all.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, I just think just in the NFL in general, you'd be wise to use a relief pitcher like the Saints do with Latavius Murray, sometimes filling in for Alvin Kamara.
So is your running back 5 then Derrick Henry?
He's actually my RB6. I have a tier gap below a healthy Saquon Barkley. And then I have actually Austin Eckler RB5 and Derrick Henry RB6.
Okay, so who do I have as my RB5? I probably have Zeke as my RB5. And that's just, I don't know, you want to talk about Kamara first or Eckler first?
Yeah, sure. Ultimately, I just look when projecting how many targets he's going to get this year, not a lot has changed. The scheme, they might make Herbert throw the ball less. I'm not sure what Joe Lombardi's really going to implement. He's talked about even implementing some stuff from the Shanahan offense. So that's the only reason you would project regression in his targets. But at the same time, like any football coach would be wise to throw the ball to Austin Eckler 100 times a season. I mean, I can't really say enough about what he brings in the passing game. And the Chargers didn't really bring in a ton of, options that'll take away targets from him. And in the games that he played last year where he was healthy, he was on pace for 120 targets there. So, I mean, that's almost like Alvin Kamara type of target share. And it's him, Kamara, and CMC, I think, are going to get the three most targets out of anybody in PPR. That's ridiculously valuable.
Yeah, I have Eckler as my running back. I think running back 10, and I share a lot of the same. Like I love him, but the only reason why it's just that low for me is that I just like the people above him for better reasons. And it's not that I'm low on Eckler; it's just I'm high on other people.
That's true. And
so my running back 5 is Zeke. People said he had a down year, which is kind of true for his standards. I think he even in his down year, he was the running back 9 in 15 games. And this year, Dak is coming back. And with Dak in those 4 games or whatever, he had, I believe he was on pace to be the running back 3, which is really good. So Dak's going to be back for another plus. And I get the argument that Zeke isn't a good player. Like his value is declining. But at the end of the day, fantasy isn't about like how efficient you are, like how good of a player you are. It's about like how much you stuff the box sheet. And Zeke is going to do that really, really well, especially with Dak back.
yeah, I mean, Zeke is still a good player. I mean, he was the butt end of a lot of just jokes last year. Is like, oh, Tony Pollard's better, that type of thing. I mean, it's not on all that. I mean, Tony Pollard was better at points last year, but Zeke is still a good running back. And the one thing I like to point about the Cowboys' production in the 5 or 6 games where Dak was healthy, they played 2 historically bad secondaries, which if you can't cover against that weapon score, literally anybody can throw for 400 yards. Like they played the Atlanta Falcons secondary, who under Dan Quinn just some of was one of the most predictable secondaries in the league. Dak knew exactly what he was looking at every single play. It was just easy for him, and it was just so easy. And the Seattle Seahawks, that secondary was just terrible. I can't overstate how much a bad secondary helped contribute to Dak's production in those 2 games, because guys were just screaming wide open. It's not even the Cowboys playmakers were doing something exceptional that game. The guys just were Seahawks and Falcons were just missing easy assignments, missing just easy switches. I kind of couldn't believe it. So when projecting success from those 2 games, I'd say that production's inflated, because those are maybe 2 of the 3 worst secondaries that year. But yeah. And anyway, back to Zeke. I do feel pretty safe about what you're getting in him. Tony Pollard, I don't think he'll take his job or anything like that. But just look at his numbers. It's slightly declining, but not that much. I mean, if you can get, again, if you get the RB9 in the first round and feel secure about it, I think you take it.
Yeah. So my running back 6 is Nick Chubb. Where is he for you?
I don't want to make this seem like I'm low on Nick Chubb, because I love Nick Chubb, but he's actually my RB12. And keep in mind, he's still in the same tier as Eckler and Derrick Henry. RBs 5 through 13 are all in the same tier. So I don't make this seem like I'm lower on Nick Chubb, because I love Nick Chubb, the player, but he's just not going to get the targets that he needs.
Does he need the targets at all? He was the running back 11 in 12 games, and Kareem Hunt was there the entire time. He scores 17 points a game, 23 points a game, getting 2 targets. He doesn't need targets to score. This is a run-first offense. He's one of the best pure runners in the entire league, and he's just gonna get carries. He's gonna get touchdowns, and I don't think that Hunt last year, they coexisted together. I don't think Hunt is going to eat away at Chubb's ceiling at all. I'm not worried at all.
I I would maybe project a little bit of natural regression from the 5.6 yards per carry he had last season. I don't expect him to
I
dip below
mean,
five,
yeah,
but
it's still really good. He had
I
five
mean,
yards.
still, but even when you factor that into the amount of carries he's going to get and his touchdown dependency, sure. I mean, you'd expect I don't say Nick Chubb's going to score less than 8 touchdowns this year because he's not, but it's just something that's a little more volatile, especially on a week to week consistency basis. And I mean, honestly, I project
I
with Kareem Hunt there. I don't expect him to get much more than 30 targets, which is a little bit concerning. And keep in mind, when he got hurt, like when he's coming back off of it, he was on fresh legs. Whereas if he hadn't gotten hurt and played those whatever 6 games he missed um healthy, we might have seen a little more wear and tear down the stretch. Whereas when he came back, he was, it was almost like it was week one again. It was like all systems go.
I don't know. I feel like what's I gonna say? Okay, so first of all, if Hunt or not Hunt, if Chubb played all 16 games, he would have been the RB4 last year. My second thing was just he like even with getting touchdowns, he has really stable production. Like I'll just read his points per game off. He had 4 in the week 1, 26, 24, 4 got hurt, 18, 11, 26, 17, 24, 14, 17, 16. And that's a really stable production. Like I don't think that's production of someone who's touchdown dependent at all.
Well, in those last 6 games, he scored a touchdown. 6 straight
Yeah,
games with
but
one or
then
more
scored a
touchdown. But
he
that's
scored a touchdown
still,
in every game but 2.
I think that's a little something that you wouldn't expect 100% to continue. I'm projecting it to regress just a little bit. Like I still think he's going to score 12, probably more like 13, 14 touchdowns, but to expect him to score on average 1 touchdown every game, I think that's a little bit unrealistic.
I don't really think it's unrealistic at all because the offense, it's a run first offense, and he's the goal line. Hunt's not gonna be the goal line guy. Chubb is the goal line guy. So like he's the go-to guy in the offense that's built around him.
That is true, but also Baker himself took some steps up last year. I, I I'm a little bit wary, and plus getting Odell back, it's a little. I'm a little bit hesitant, I think, but I think part of the reason like he would have finished as the RB4 is because every year there are just a ton of injuries. And keep in mind the guys that I have above Nick Chubb, I'm projecting them to stay healthy, like for 17 games now this year. Some of them that's not gonna happen. And even with no Chubb got hurt last year, I have full confidence he'll play all 17 games this year.
Yeah.
So if you're taking Chubb because you want security, then I get it.
So my Chubb was my RB6, right? Who's your RB6?
Well, my RB6 was Derrick Henry. And it was almost like kind of what we talked about with Chubb. I'm projecting a little bit of regression in yard of just natural regression in
Yeah.
yards per carry, not because a ton has changed, but just because, I mean, 5.4 yards per carry over 378 carries is ridiculous. I mean, the thing is like, it's almost like it's all down from there. Because how can he top that if it makes sense?
No, no,
And
yeah,
he's
no, you totally have a point because like the way that he was the RB2 last year was because he was an absolute beast running the ball. Like he broke a billion tackles and like he didn't have much reception work. And the fact that he did that good, he has to repeat that same dominance this year, which is really hard, especially given wear and tear. So it wouldn't be surprising if he broke down even just a little bit.
Yeah, even if he breaks down a little bit at this point, I'll project regression from Derrick Henry when I see it because I had him I've been lower on him before and I've kind of gotten burnt, but still I'm like at some point the other shoe's got to drop. These running backs don't last much longer than 5 years.
Yeah, and like he's in the year, this is his 6th year or something.
This Yes, he's going into his 6th season.
Yeah, so it's gonna be, I don't know, it's just a matter of whether or not he can keep this insane performance up for that long.
Yeah. Who's your RB6 is Chubb, right? So who's your RB7?
My I think my RB7 is probably Aaron Jones.
He's my RB7 too.
Mhm. Dare
And
I say, like, he is underrated almost. Like, people forget that he's placed top 5 2 years in a row, and in one of those years he didn't play 2 games. Like, that's really, really impressive. And I think he goes under the radar because he doesn't have some of the same name brand value as the Chimeras or the Henrys or the McCaffreys or something. But he will get the job done for you.
yes, I feel pretty safe about taking Aaron Jones especially as RB7 as well. I Now he was overpaid. I mean, there's no way about it, Packers fans, but yeah, you don't pay a running back 12 million instead of your all pro center 12 million. But anyway, I don't see his workload changing though, because I think Dylan will probably take Jamal Williams's carries,
Yeah.
and just Aaron Jones's workload will probably stay the same. The one thing that's kind of a bit of a cause for concern is that he may see a slight decrease in target share because, I mean, let's be real, he's basically their second best slot receiver next to Devontae Adams last year, or actually no, for the past couple years, which is really bad. When you're Devontae Adams, who's being wasted in the slot, he should play on the perimeter, but he has to play in the slot because nobody else can, because they're all like 6'5", 6'5", 210, almost borderline tight ends. But this year they actually added, oh my gosh, not just one slot receiver. They drafted Amari Rodgers in the 3rd round, but 2 slot receivers. They just traded Randall Cobb because they wanted Aaron Rodgers back. So that might hurt them a little bit now that Aaron Jones is no longer the second best wide receiver on the team. I mean, seriously, if he converted a wide receiver, he would have been their second best wide receiver the last 2 years. But that's beside the point. Now he's probably their 4th best, which is cool. Side tangent, Packers fans are like, oh, you can't replace what Jones offers as an offensive weapon. Okay, then sign a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Like, okay, then have AJ Dillon run the ball and have, sign, let's see, I don't know, Corey Davis, Will Fuller for, less money than Aaron Jones. Not that hard.
Anyway, yeah, I totally see that. So where was I? Running back for, are we in 8? Yeah.
Yeah. Zeke's my 8.
Okay. My 8 is Saquon Barkley. He would have been my 3, but just with all the injury concerns, which I talked about a little bit earlier, he is my running back 8.
Yeah, and at this point, I'm not sure. I would probably take my RB13 over Saquon at this point, just because I'm just honestly I'm not sure I'd touch Saquon for a few rounds. I'm just getting seriously terrified. But yeah.
So my running back 9 is Jonathan Taylor.
And again, I know it's going to make it sound like I'm low on him, but I promise you I still like him. Jonathan Taylor is actually my RB13, just below Nick Chubb. And part of the reason is I like the upside of some of the other players more. And I don't think Jonathan Taylor efficiency, kind of like we talked about with Nick Chubb. Sure. Would you maybe project a tiny bit of regression from 5 yards per carry? Maybe, but not a lot. There's a reason he got 5 yards a carry over 200 plus carries. He's still a really good football player, and he's got a good offensive line in front of him. But they're getting Marlon Mack back. Not that I think Marlon Mack's going to, come for Jonathan Taylor's job. He's
Marlon
not.
Mack's non-back.
That's true, but I think the Colts are a smart team. They'll try to lay back the load on Jonathan Taylor and take some tread off the tire so that he doesn't start breaking down like Saquon sadly did. And Jonathan Taylor, I like how he's become a better receiving back since he came to the league, noticeably better than he was when he was at Wisconsin. Sharper route runner, better hands. He's talked about doing that more, wanting to do that more. But to me, I don't think he's going to get that opportunity as long as Nyheim Hines is there, who is one of the best true 3rd down backs in the league. The volume, I'm just not quite sure about. I love the player. I absolutely love the talent. I don't even know if there's a real weakness in his game anymore. He doesn't even fumble the ball much anymore, which is
Yeah.
something he did at Wisconsin. But the workload, I think the Colts are a smart team. They'll kind of make sure he doesn't break down so they can keep him for a couple more years.
Yeah, I feel Taylor is a little overhyped
Yeah.
because of last year's finish. He had an insane finish, but that was because he did play really bad defenses. And the funny thing is, like, David Montgomery had the exact same situation. And people realize that for David Montgomery, but not for Jonathan Taylor. And I do get that Taylor is this production sustainable. Like, he has an elite offensive line. But that's not enough to now draft him with proven guys such as Kamara or as Barkley, not even Barkley, Kamara or Cook or Henry or Zeke. And I feel that he isn't in that tier yet, but he's in the tier below.
That's true. And I wouldn't call him a blue chip player. I only have three of them: CMC, Kamara, and Cook, and the other guys all have some risk attached to them. And with one thing though to keep an eye on, and why JT might be rising up my board, is Carson Wentz's recent injury. He's out indefinitely. God knows what that means. So their quarterback is not pretty after that. They have Jacob Eason and Sam Ellinger, which would easily be the worst quarterback room since the Bears having Mitch Trubisky for 4 years. So if Carson Wentz actually misses substantial time, there's reason to bump JT up, especially because they're going to have to run their offense through Jonathan Taylor, because I don't think Jacob Eason was a very good prospect. I mean, I'm fine with the Colts taking him on day 3 because that's where you take Jacob Eason. But yeah, if Jacob Eason's their quarterback, they're going to have to run their offense through Jonathan Taylor, and they have to run the ball like 40 plus times a game if they want to win.
Yeah. So we're at my RB9, I think. Jeez, I'm forgetting. But this is the end. Actually, I don't know if this is a trigger out for me. But Eckler's my RB10. I love him. We kind of talked about him before. Who is your RB10?
My RB9 is
RB9.
DeAndre Swift, and my RB10 is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Those are kind of my two higher upside plays that for example, if I were able to get Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey in round 1, and Kelsey's gone, so I have to wait for a little bit on tight end, and in the back of round 2, top of round 3, I'm taking Swift and Clyde.
I share the Clyde hype as well, but I'm a little bit lower on Swift, and I feel most people are as well. So what do you see in Swift?
So let me explain. I know Anthony Lynn said, giving kind of the general coach speak, that, they're going to use some type of committee. Every coach is going to say that because they're not just, unless it's straight up that obvious, they're not just going to say, well, we're going to give the ball to DeAndre Swift, so then teams have months to game plan specifically for DeAndre Swift. They're just kind of keeping them on their toes. And to me, Jamal Williams will probably get the same carries that he got in Green Bay. So logically, Swift will get probably the same carries as an Aaron Jones got in Green Bay, which is an RB1 type workload. And the reason I love Swift really is the targets he's going to get. He's honestly a great receiving back. Like, he's a very smooth receiver, turns well upfield after he catches the ball. I mean, sure, he had a case of the dropsies, but that doesn't mean he's not great at running routes and getting open and creating yards after the catch with his just insane explosiveness. And I want to make this clear. Jamal Williams is not nearly as good as DeAndre Swift. The reason they brought Jamal Williams in is specifically to be a culture guy, because Packers players and fans loved him. I mean, he's, dancing before the games. He's just players love him, and the Lions need to reset that culture. That's probably why they brought Jamal Williams in, but Swift is their RB1. Jamal's like a good backup, but he's kind of physically limited. DeAndre Swift does not have those physical limitations. He has great vision, scary explosiveness and top speed, and run with power, and is just a much better receiver. And speaking of receivers, the Lions receiver room is a complete joke. Their wide receiver one, sorry, what?
It's non-existent.
Their wide receiver 1 is Tyrell Williams, who should be a wide receiver 4 on any roster. Like,
Yeah.
utterly disgusting. It's part of the reason why I like TJ Hawkinson a lot this year. And plus, with Jared Goff at quarterback, Jared Goff's not going to throw for 30 plus touchdowns, especially not with those. I mean, you can call them wide receivers, I guess, but Swift, I feel good about him getting the touchdown production. Again, it's something that's a little harder to project because it's a little more volatile, but I still feel good about it just because I'm like, okay, who's going to score for them? It's not Jared Goff. It's DeAndre Swift and probably TJ Hawkinson. So that I'd honestly project him to get like 75 targets. And keep in mind, in just 13 games last year, where he hadn't really quite gotten a full-time starter role yet, he still had 57 targets. He's really, I mean, maybe not, doesn't have quite Alvin Kamara upside, but something like that. He's like, I think he can be a 90% version of what Alvin Kamara is.
Yeah, I agree with most of that speech you had about Swift. I feel like he's certainly a high upside player. The only reason why I just don't have him in that place is that I like people ahead of him better. And I feel like in the second round, we went from first round running backs now to second round running backs. And I feel you really, for the most part, you can't go wrong. I prefer some more than others, but overall, they're all in a very close tier of their own. And barring any injuries, I feel you're going to get pretty similar production from all of them.
That's true. On my like overall, if I were doing first round picks, I wouldn't Swift is my RB9, but I wouldn't take him in the first round because I'd probably take Travis Kelce before him. I'd probably take Devontae Adams before him. So yeah.
Gotta go, Steve. I'll just speed read off some of my tiers.
Yeah.
Running back 10, I think run is Eckler. I like him for the same reasons you love him. My running back 11 is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. If he didn't get hurt last year, he was on pace to be the running back 12, which is really good for a rookie.
I mean, he would have gotten
Bell is basically a no name at this point. And I feel like he's a really, really high upside in that offense.
One last thing about Clyde, he was on pace, and this is in a 17-game season. He was on pace for 300 carries and 88 targets last year. That's a lot. So yeah, I mean that was before Le'Veon Bell showed up.
But like Bell's gonna be no name this year. Bell's gonna do nothing.
Yeah, Bell's not really in the team anymore. So, and plus the Chiefs' offensive line is much better. They added like 3 great veterans and drafted 2 great players, in my opinion. So yeah.
My running back 11 is Antonio Gibson. I was a little bit worried about him with the turf toe, but he seems to be cleared. My running back 12, this could be a shocker. Actually, no, it's not a shocker in the slightest. Joe Mixon. I don't know. Every single year I take him. Every single year I get burned. But I feel that this could be the year once again. The offense is great. The offensive line is a little bit better. I don't know. I feel it could come together for Mixon. But I get someone who doesn't want to draft him.
I'm with you. I'm kind of like Mixon's my RB11. I'm kind of like, okay, this is the year. This is the year. It's either health or a terrible offensive line. So yeah, we'll see.
Oh wait, no, Mixon's my running back 13. Shoot. And my running back 14 is Najee Harris. I've seen him go really early in some drafts for some reason. I think that's rookie hype. But I feel like he's obviously an insane prospect. And he's going to get workhorse duties right away. So I feel it's a good value for him right there. My running back 15 is Chris Carson. He's kind of underrated, honestly. Like in the past 3 years, I think he's been running back 3 or 5 in terms of fantasy points per game, which is really impressive. There's also no competition for him other than like Rashad Penny, who's kind of a bust. So I feel that he's going to be an underrated player. He has a really high ceiling. He's definitely going to be good for me. And I've done Swift now as my running back 16.
Kind of speed reading for mine. Yeah, I have Joe Mix is my RB11, Chubb is my RB12, Taylor is my RB13. I have a slight tier gap drop down to RB14, which is Antonio Gibson, RB15 Chris Carson, and RB16 Najee Harris. I mean, I basically agree with everything you said about those guys. I think Chris Carson is nice that he proved he's a decent receiving back last year, which will add value in PPR. And then my RB17, this might be a little bit out there, but I actually have Myles Gaskin.
No way. Yeah, he's mine too.
Oh wow, sweet. Yeah, I just think
Well, yeah, I can talk about
who's his
Gaskin.
competition?
I
Who's
love
his
him.
competition?
No one. His competition is Selvin Ahmed and Malcolm Brown. Like the Dolphins, everyone thought they're going to draft like Najee Harris or sign someone big in free agency, and they didn't. So that means that they trust Gaskin. And I don't think people know this, but in Gaskin's 10 games or something that he played, he was the running back four. And I'm not
Yeah,
saying that he's going to be a top five running back, but when he consistently averages that good numbers, and he's the only player in that or only running back in that offense, he's going to put up good RB2 numbers. Like, there's no question about it. He's going
in
to be a
10
massive.
games last year, he got 47 targets.
Yeah,
I
he's
mean,
an
I might
absolute
that
beast.
might regress just a tiny bit because they added Fuller and Jalen Waddle, but I think they're going to want to get the ball out of to his hands quickly and early, and Gaskin will be a great way to do that. And he's going to get the carries because who the hell else are they going to give him to? Just because of volume and his value in PPR, I just love Miles Gaskin. He's probably going to
Yeah.
be my RB2 in most leagues.
Yeah, but I guess that's kind of like the end of a tier list. I got to go, but next episode, we could definitely talk about the next tier, which is kind of like third and fourth round guys and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
great. We hope you enjoyed the show. Stick around for next time,
Yeah.
and we'll see you soon. Bye.
All right. See ya.